Indian Prime Minister Modi is set to visit China amid Donald Trump's tariffs on India. Reports suggest President Xi Jinping will now personally welcome Prime Minister Modi and President Putin to the SCO Summit, amidst reports of a revival of the RIC Troika. But now comes the real news: why President Trump is targeting India specially and unfairly. By 2038, India will overtake America to become the second largest economy according to purchasing power parity. This is why the United States is rattled by India's rapid rise and has imposed 25% base tariffs on India, higher than Asian nations including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam or Indonesia. The White House specially is seeking to target India's industrial growth and exports. However, those efforts are failing and in fact are now giving rise to a powerful $54 trillion strategic triad between India, China and Russia, which could reshape global economic dynamics and in fact shatter US economic dominance. According to this report in The Mint, business leaders list out why Trump's unfair and aggressive anti-India trade policies could end up uniting the RIC Troika like never before, something which the Modi government had been reluctant to do till now. Now we'll list out the exact figures on how the Troika dominates global GDP, manufacturing and has the biggest and hungriest consumer markets. But first, US double standards have been completely exposed. Reports reveal how American energy titan Exxon is itself planning to enter a partnership with Russia for cheap oil, and that discussions were held during Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. So Donald Trump administration essentially is using tariffs to try and replace India as a customer of economical Russian crude. The hypocrisy isn't lost on anyone. US has shown it is not interested in peace, only economic leverage and profiteering. US is selling weapons to Ukraine and Europe. Zelensky was humiliated in the White House before a US-Ukraine minerals deal. And now the United States wants a secret energy deal with Russia. All this while accusing India, a country that has sold no weapons nor has played any part in the NATO-Ukraine-Russia conflict. Even Poland had acknowledged Prime Minister Modi and India's influence in ensuring the Russia-Ukraine war never turned nuclear. So the United States attacks India seem like the pot calling the kettle black. Now this strategy has backfired totally. International media reports from Germany and Japan both claim Prime Minister Modi has refused to answer at least 4 phone calls from Donald Trump. Now there will be no compromise on India's national interests. Experts are already calling Donald Trump's India tariffs the biggest blunder in the history of US foreign policy.
Friends in India don't trust the United States.
With this, America stands to lose its biggest ally in the Asia Pacific, and with it, any chance of competing with China over issues like Taiwan. Even as Donald Trump's 50% tariffs kick in on India, the Modi government has refused to compromise on India's energy security.
You have a problem buying oil from India.
Prime Minister Modi is now set to meet President Xi Jinping and President Putin in China for the SCO Summit, his first visit to China in 7 years and first after the deadly Galwan Valley clashes along the LAC in Ladakh. China, India, Russia together constitute $54 trillion GDP in purchasing power parity, which is nearly 1/3 of the planet's economic output. The triad exports $5.09 trillion worth of goods, which is almost 1/5 of global merchandise exports flowing across continents, fueling global trade, connecting billions through innovation, technology, and industry. With $4.7 trillion in foreign reserves, they provide 38% of the world's safety net. The 3 Asian giants have built an economic fortress. A reset in India-China ties was out on full display last week after Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi wrapped up his New Delhi visit after holding talks with Prime Minister Modi, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Prime Minister Modi mentioned in a post on platform X, quote, "Glad to meet Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Since my meeting with President Xi in Kazan last year, India-China relations have made steady progress, guided by respect for each other's interests and sensitivities," unquote. Meanwhile, Russia is keeping a close watch on India-China relations, especially after the deadly Galwan Valley clashes which took place in 2020. Addressing a press meeting at the Russian embassy on August 20th, a senior Russian diplomat stated, "We welcome the very successful visit by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi." He further highlighted the need for stronger ties among members of the BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO. A senior Russian official, accompanied by Russia's Deputy Trade Commissioner in India, Evgeny Griva, said that BRICS member countries can come up with a collective response to the tariffs imposed by Trump. In fact, for the first time, the BRICS nations will trade in Indian rupees. In a major pivot from the United States, India has now taken a huge step to resume strained ties with China. And it is a wise move. India should have permanent peace along its border with China, its most powerful neighbor. Border trade has restarted. Direct flights will resume, as well as lifting of restrictions on Chinese investment in India and visas for Chinese nationals. The central government has initiated discussions with China for the resumption of border trade through all three designated points: Shipkila in Himachal Pradesh, Lipulekh in Uttarakhand, and Nathula in Sikkim. Meanwhile, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on the 25th of August denied any links between India's China shift and US trade talks. Despite the timing of the two developments, Goyal reiterated, quote, "We had already started re-engaging, and that was completely unlinked to any matters related to the current trade agreement with the United States. So I would not like to hyphenate or link the two," unquote. But what's the real reason behind India-China thaw? Reports suggest even before Donald Trump's tariffs, Xi Jinping had sent a secret letter to Indian President Draupadi Murmu, expressing desire to normalize ties amid US tariff drama. The Chinese outreach was conveyed to Indian Prime Minister Modi, who then directed re-engagement with visits of Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar and NSA Doval to China, recently reciprocated by Wang Yi's India visit and an invitation to Prime Minister Modi for the SCO Summit to be held in China. And why shouldn't India talk to China or Russia when United States itself struck a minerals deal with a terror state like Pakistan, which had even shielded bin Laden? But what do experts say? Ross Maxwell, global strategy lead at VT Markets, says there are advantages in easing tensions with China, adding, "Many sectors stand to benefit from these talks, including critical minerals and rare earths, where China controls a substantial amount of global production and processing. These are essential for electronics, defense, and renewable energy industries," unquote. China has vowed to back India against Donald Trump's tariffs, even invited Indian businesses. Harshmi from the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation explained to Al Jazeera, quote, "This could offer India some relief from Donald Trump's tariffs and mitigate the impact of strategic and economic vulnerabilities, and also help reduce the significant trade imbalance India currently has with China." Remember, New Delhi's trade deficit with Beijing was at $85 billion last year, up from just over $50 million back in 2019. Analysts say it is primarily because India relies on China for machinery and for raw materials for its pharmaceutical and electronic sectors. However, there are concerns of Chinese firms dumping cheap products in India if trade barriers are lifted, with one report warning that India is at high risk of oversupply from China, thus hurting India's domestic manufacturers. Now, US Vice President J.D. Vance claims the 50% tariffs on Indian imports of Russian oil was aimed at creating aggressive economic leverage to pressure Russia to halting its attacks on Ukraine. However, even the base 25% tariffs on India are extremely unfair and will continue to hurt India's exporters and manufacturers. It doesn't make any sense for India to strike a trade deal with America unless the base tariffs are lower than other Asian nations and rivals. In such a scenario, this offers India a great opportunity to reset ties with China and to lay the groundwork for a permanent border solution along the LAC in the Himalayas, with Russia pushing for the revival of the RIC Troika and a stronger BRICS. Reports suggest even President Putin could visit India by the end of this year. But what do you believe? Should President Trump be given a Nobel Peace Prize for uniting India, China and Russia? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.